everyone. Welcome to today's session. Our featured speaker today is Mr. Eli Amdur. I am B&D Guzman, Director of Civic Engagement. Thank you for listening in today, and we appreciate your presence. Lauren Terriello, our Chief Philanthropic Officer, Melissa Larobadier, Associate Development Director, and I will be here with you to assist you during today's presentation. Before we get started, I want to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate in today's session. I've taken a screenshot here to show you an example of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. You have joined today's webinar listening through your telephone by default. If you would like to use computer's speaker system, just locate your audio pane and select microphone and speakers. You also have the ability to ask questions using your questions pane. Simply type in your questions and click send. At the end of the presentation, we will do a question and answer session and take as many questions as we have time for. If you no longer have the time to answer your questions, we will email all of them to our speaker and we will forward you the answers at a later time. Please mute your audio device during the presentation, and this webinar will be recorded and archived and can be accessed from our website, www.bergenvolunteers.org. Our next webinar is scheduled on February 17, 2016. Please watch out for our email. Another spiel. Bergen Leads, a unique civic leadership program offered by Bergen Volunteer Center, is looking for individuals from a wide range of fields who have the skills, values, and motivation to be a special kind of leader. Individuals who have the desire and capacity to take their leadership strengths to a higher level in order to help their communities, professions, and organizations. So apply now at bergenleads.org. If you have any questions, you may contact me at bdguzman@bergenvolunteers.org or 201-489-9454, extension 203. Thank you and have a great day. Let me give you Lauren. Hello? Lauren?
Hi, welcome, and welcome everyone to the Bergen Volunteer Center. In 2016, the Bergen Volunteer Center will celebrate 50 years of service in our community. We exist to ensure Bergen County has the resources to connect people through meaningful service and civic engagement. Here, we are proud to redefine volunteerism. Our brand of volunteerism is skilled, trained, compassionate, generous, and dedicated, focused to make a significant and meaningful impact. Volunteerism, time, talent, and treasure is truly the heart of our community. And so this is why today at 50, we're not getting old, we're just getting started. And to kick off the year, one of our first impact opportunities is our Books in a Bag initiative. Books in a Bag is a Business Volunteer Council community outreach program promoting childhood literacy through the collections of books for children grades kindergarten through 12. Did you know 23% of New Jersey residents read at or below a 4th grade level? You can change the statistic and donate a book today. Please contact Erica West at 201-489-9454, extension 205, or ewest@bergenvolunteers.org for questions, comments, or how you can go about making a difference here in Bergen County. So join us as we continue to redefine volunteerism, because when Bergen gives back, we give back with impact. Now, I am happy to introduce to you your speaker for today, Mr. Eli Amdur, Senior Coach and Advisor with the Amdur Coaching and Advisory Group, LLC. With 40 years plus national and international business experience, Eli Amdur works in both the corporate and academic world. As a Senior Coach and Advisor at the Amdur Coaching and Advisory Group, Eli analyzes, writes, speaks about on-the-job market issues, and has authored the weekly Career Coach column for North Jersey Media Group and other major newspapers around the U.S. His first book, It's Not So Far From Here to There, The Thinking Person's Guide to a Well-Managed Career, is now in its 4th printing. Aside from providing individual coaching, Eli also advises corporate leaders on matters of leadership, team building, coaching, creative thinking, and effective communication. You might remember his thought-provoking Fifth Friday presentation, The World in 2050. Are you ready? At Fairleigh Dickinson University, where he received the 2007 Faculty Member of the Year Award and the 2010 Stratus Castle Award for a Lifetime of Dedication, Service, and Contribution to FDU, the 2013 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Medal of Honor, and the 2015 Presidential Citation, he is the adjunct professor of 2 graduate-level leadership courses since 2003, Executive Communication as a Leadership Tool and Creativity, Change, and the 21st Century Leader. Although he stopped following the Grateful Dead around many years ago, he is still a Jerry Garcia wannabe and works very hard at it wherever he can. We are in for a great program today. I would love to turn it over to Mr. Amdur. Ellie?
Thanks. Am I on now? Are we doing all right? Okay. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here. And thanks for the wonderful introduction, even though I wrote that myself. And to all of you whom I know but I can't see, and we know each other anyway, nice to be with you again. For those of you who do not know me, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit differently from the way you just heard. I'm Eli Amdur, and don't laugh because I just found out that 70% of all LinkedIn users are using pictures that were taken years ago. So I decided to do the same thing. Truthfully, that's me. You may have recognized me somewhere hanging around the bar at the Good Friday. As you just heard, the things that I kind of define myself by are my affiliation with Fairleigh Dickinson as an alum for almost 50 years and teaching 2 great courses there. Having the pleasure of writing to you every Sunday in the job section of the Record, and having published my book a few years ago, which was mentioned earlier. And for those of you who have been asking me, yes, I've got an idea for a second one coming up, but let's not talk about that today. Most of all, I'm very happy to be here with the Bergen Volunteer Center. An organization just keeps on getting better and better and more meaningful every year. With programs such as Mentoring Moms, Mentoring Youth, the Chore program, and now the upcoming Skills Link and Board Link programs, on top of what I consider to be one of the greatest training grounds in the world, and that's the Bergen Leads program. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you all for asking me to be here, and looking forward to all of us participating in more events. So what am I here to talk about? We're talking about the one word missing from your org chart that, if it were there, would completely change your organization. So who am I to talk about this? Well, if you were to go to my website, and over here on the left where the menu is, go to Corporate Services and click on that, you'll see something that says Our Corporate Clients. Now, it's my policy never to mention the names of my clients because the work I do for them is usually rather sensitive and proprietary, but you'll notice that I have, in 18 and a half, almost 19 years of doing independent advisory work for companies, worked for companies in 20 industries. Well, actually, recently that became 22. So I have seen an awful lot of org charts, and I've had to help organizations work through their organizational difficulties, which are very much encapsulated by and exhibited by org charts. So the question, or not the question, one question I have for you is, have you looked at your org chart lately? And in the case of some of you, do you even know where it is? I have, no kidding, been into organizations where I've said, can I see your org chart? And they really had to go ask someone to go find it. It becomes a dormant, dead object buried in somebody's drawer or somewhere on a file on a computer that nobody knows what the file's called. But the next question is, has your org chart ever changed? Not grown, because as you hire new people, another vice president, another coordinator, or whatever it might be, your organization is growing, but has it changed? And does your org chart show that? Hold that thought, because it's got a lot to do with what I want to talk to you about. So, like, here's my org chart. A very simple. We have a standing written agreement that if one of us needs the other one's help, we activate the agreement. So it really is a group. But quite frankly, when you get to my office, BA will tell you, there's just me. But take a look at some horrible org charts in that they understand, This is an org chart that was probably done by somebody with a great graphics program and not too much understanding of what goes into an organization. More and more complex. Folks, believe it or not, that's an org chart. It looks like a circuit board. But this was an org chart by this guy at the top who said that everybody in the organization has to have a direct line to everybody else in the organization. You can imagine that the consulting that I offered them was never accepted. Well, that's an org chart. It just happens to be the New York City subway system, but it's an org chart anyway. I just ran across this org chart of how to figure out Downton Abbey, which is excellent for me because I've never seen Downton Abbey. I think this one was made by J. Buckminster Fuller. This, believe it or not, if you can see it, I don't know how the resolution is an org chart that was designed by the chief creative officer of a company. What this guy was being creative about, I'm not entirely sure, but it is an org chart and a very weird one. Here's one that I think was drawn up by the president's 14-year-old 7th grade daughter. Here's an org chart that really highlights the fright of what goes on in organizations. There are 11 layers of management in this organization from top to bottom. Now, you get into organizations that are giving thought to their org charts, and here's one that was the before, but the organization made the following statement, that it's also crucial to design a formal structure that is aligned with the work processes and vice versa. So they went off, they took this org chart, and this became the before, and here is the after. Now, will somebody please tell me what effect that had and how it aligns differently from the first one? Please, give me a call because I'd love to know. I haven't figured it out. So the question is, after you've seen all those frightening pictures, how did things get like this? Organizations are supposed to run smoothly. They're supposed to run seamlessly. But as you can see by those org charts, they don't, and we all know it. So how it got like that is somebody decided to start a company, call himself the CEO. As you move forward, you get somebody working for you, that's the VP. Well, that VP can't just be a VP, so he declares he's VP of operations. And then, of course, we have to hire a VP of sales, but the VP of operations has been there longer and thinks about a little bit more of himself, so he becomes the senior vice president. Now we have 3 layers of this organization, and so far there are 3 people in it. Now we got to hire some more VPs to take care of some more functions. We need a manager to take care of something that the VP of administration doesn't need. We start building managers all over the place. One of the managers has to become a director, of course, because we haven't got a director yet. And now we start in with regional managers and senior managers and director. We got to have a webmaster over here, of course, because the world's got to know about it. Sales coordinators, and before you know it, we've got CEOs, CFOs, COOs, CTOs, a whole bunch of other C-something-O. We don't really know what they are, but it really doesn't matter at this point because you've got all these vice presidents and senior vice presidents who are handling tons of vice presidents, and now we need to build this administrative staff alongside that because we've got a whole bunch of senior directors and senior executive directors and special assistants to somebody or other, and they've got to handle all the directors, and those directors have got to handle senior managers and then managers, and it goes on until your organization, which a little while ago had 3 of you, looks like this. And by the way, there's always that guy in the organization. Nobody knows what his title is, but he's always happy, and he's always running around doing stuff. He's usually the guy who volunteers to manage the Sunday or the summer picnic. In any event, we got to have a couple of dotted lines also. You got to have dotted lines when you're running a big organization. So this dotted line goes to a consulting firm. It's not even part of the organization, but it's a dotted line, and you got to have dotted lines. So let's keep a couple dotted lines here because this org chart isn't complex enough. So let's take one dotted line and throw it over here, and let's not forget our consultant. And that guy that's always smiling, well, the CEO needs to have a dotted line to him because that guy will do just about anything that's necessary. So now you got dotted lines, and you got, I think we've got about 12 layers of management right here. On your org chart, and this actually is taken from an org chart from a company with whom I worked. I didn't work for them, I did work for them. You have the big birds, You have the guys who might get up to the big bird slot but are really more likely walking Peter principles. Then you have the guys who tell you what you're worth and keep you out of court. You have lots and lots of VP wannabes, more Peter principles probably. Then you have the guys who depend on these guys. These are the ones that are actually doing something that all the managers are managing. You have the guys who are actually doing what your company does. And you have these guys who don't know what your company does but tell the world about it anyway. The people who build lots and lots of ineffective programs, but they all have smile sheets at the end of their programs and everybody says it was great. Then you have guys like this who think they're running the show, but then you have these who really are running the show. And then you have the ones that the organization thinks ought to be there, so if they really ought to be there, we're going to put money in the budget, we're going to hire them, and we do. And when all of that is said and done, we probably still have running around somewhere a hall monitor. And besides that, we got that guy who's still running around smiling. Well, that's how things got this way. Those titles that I just showed you, there were 77 of them, not including the hall monitor, were actually off of one organization's org chart. 77 different titles. That's not how many people they had. They had God knows how many vice presidents and senior directors and senior managers and assistant managers, 77 titles in one organization. And that's how things got that way. And so what's the result? In general, you can pretty much figure that an org chart winds up looking like this. And yet there's still that guy down there who's smiling, but the more of this that's happening, the more likely it is that he starts looking like that. I have to tell you that after doing an analysis of an organization about 10 years ago, I presented this to the CEO and told him, like it or not, that's what an organization looks like. I didn't know if I was going to get thrown out or hugged. I did get the hug. So given all of that, let's look at a definition of an org chart. And this, by the way, if you want the source, is me. This is not Merriam-Webster. This is not Peter Drucker. This is the Amdur definition of an org chart. So an organization chart, that's organization chart, noun, is a document that explains in pictorial form how an organization is supposed to work and then clearly exposes why it doesn't. And if you think back about over the org charts I showed you, you understand that that's exactly right. So all of that brings me to today's point. What is the missing word on the org chart? We have C-level, we have SVPs and EVPs and VPs and directors and managers, all that other kind of stuff, but not on one org chart that I have ever worked with, including the companies I worked for in my earlier years, did the word coach appear. The missing word is coach. So what we're going to talk about today is what is coaching, why coaching. I want to tell you, build the case for coaching. Talk to you about the difference between coaching, counseling, and mentoring, because you see each one of those in an organization. I want to tell you a little bit about the nature of coaching. I could tell you an awful lot about that, not in the limit I have today. Let's talk about the manager as coach, the nature of the change you have to make, the benefits and the barriers to coaching, and then moving forward and what you can actually do starting at 2 o'clock today. So before we talk about what is coaching, let's tackle the question, why? Why coaching? Well, let me give you probably the most compelling reason. And that was given by none less than Harvey Firestone more than a century ago, who said, it is only as we develop others that we permanently succeed. Now, he had a different mentality in building his organization and developing his people than his two very close friends. You may have heard of them, Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. A very famous picture of the two of them sitting together out in Henry Ford's backyard. Those three guys changed the world in the early part of the 20th century. But it was Firestone who really believed in the development of his people and built his organization like it. So for my money, he's the grandfather of corporate training and development. So A couple of other things that you should know that would color this conversation. An article in Forbes stated that fewer than 1 in 2 CEOs believe their organizations are prepared to deal with an increasingly complex world. And there's no need to dwell on how complex the world is getting and how quickly it's getting that complex. But fewer than 50% of all CEOs surveyed believe they weren't ready for it. Now, you can be ready or not ready for basically one of two reasons. Either you got the products that will compete, or you've got the people. For my money, it's all about the people, and I think that's what the CEOs are talking about. But here's something from my career coach, when I'm putting on my career coach hat, that I want to tell you about. Right now, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are 5.4 million open jobs in America. The Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey says that there are 5.4 million jobs unfilled for which employers would hire right now if the person with the right skills would just show up. Now, to put that in perspective, last month's jobs report showed a continuing decrease in the number of people unemployed. We're now down to 7.9 million, which is half of what it was a number of years ago. We all remember that. Let's not harp on it. But if 7.9 million people are unemployed and 5.4 million people or million jobs are open, why can't they be filled? There are more candidates than there are for jobs. And the answer to that is that right now, most organizations are not willing to spend the money in developing those people. They want them showing up, ready to work. So it's a workplace problem, and it's an ethical problem as well. But companies and nonprofit organizations and public sector organizations are beginning to recognize, and the number of training programs and apprenticeships has begun to tick up ever so slightly. But if an organization were to say, okay, you don't have all the experience we want, but you've got plenty of talent, we're going to bring you on and we're going to coach you through this process, this would be a very different story altogether. So the case for coaching becomes rather clear. So I'd like to talk to you about a case that I was involved in about 7 years ago with an organization that brought me in to help them out. One of my colleagues and I came in to do this project. The profile of the study is this. This was a Fortune Global 100 company. They were in the top 5 in their industry worldwide. The division of the organization that we were to work with was critical to the organization's financial success. What we were brought into was to help them with a talent development and talent utilization issue. Now, to describe that just for a second, it means that they knew that they had a lot of talent and talents within their several hundred people, but they didn't know what those talents were. So in other words, in a global world, they would have to know they would have to have people in their organization that spoke probably 12 or 15 different languages, from Chinese to Japanese to German to French to Russian to Arabic, etc. They didn't know who those people were. They needed people who had skills in areas like analysis, in design, in external relations, and they really didn't know who they were. So it was our job to compile that list and to help them understand what the talent skeleton was in the organization. So we started doing the work. And then we discovered a frightening hidden problem. And that problem was the ever-fearsome performance review, the annual performance review. Because of the fact that it was an ominous thing the way it was used in their company. It was either a rehire or a death sentence, quite frankly. What that did was indicate the cause, which was terrible, in my words, management practices. Managers were simply managing like you would be doing if you were playing a chess game and moving pieces from here to there. There was no development going on. You were expected to do your job. Goals were set at the beginning of the year, and if any of you have ever seen these really intricate performance evaluation systems, the goal sheets are 10, 12, 15 pages long. In any event, as a result of that, they came to realize, because we actually wouldn't let them ignore the problem, that there was a huge cost based on this misbehavior. So we had to change course. And the program that started as talent development and utilization, which we continued, was, at their request, one to help them build a coaching environment. There was zero coaching going on. The inconvenient truth that the EVP of the organization uttered to us, from the EVP, we learned that our managers have been trained to be what they hate the most: bureaucrats. And that led to a lot of that. So, if you think about managers who are just simply moving pieces around and expecting results and then giving you your results on an evaluation, take a look at the evolution of your manager. On day one, you come in and there's a smiling, welcoming face with a handshake. Welcome to the organization. We're glad to have you here. People are our greatest asset. You've heard all of that. 6 months later, you got a guy who's looking at you like that. And 1 year, when your performance review comes by, that's what your manager looks like. And anybody who's been in any organization that uses a performance review knows exactly that. In this particular case, and as has come out in some of the HR journals ever since, buried deep beneath the performance review as it is practiced are calibration systems. And calibration systems are really the nasty part of all of this. So if you're doing your job and you're meeting all your goals, you're working very well, you're achieving results, and you think on the 1 to 5 scale, you should be getting a 4 or a 5, chances are you won't, because the calibration system from way higher up in the organization than your boss is doing the review sits is this probably arbitrarily or at least maliciously put together calibration system that comes down and says, in your organization you have 100 people, you can have 5 5s, we expect 20 4s, we expect 63s, and then we expect about 10 4s and 5, I don't know if that adds to 100, it doesn't matter, 5s. Those are the people you're going to fire. And so you're working really well. You think you need to get a 5 or even a 4+, and it comes back with a 3. And you ask for an appeal, and it doesn't exist. As it turns out, those evil calibration systems have worked their way through many, many organizations. And one, headquartered here in New Jersey, I'm sorry, well, we can get to there anyway. One of them here in New Jersey was the loser of a $400 million class action suit brought by a sector of its employment population, and they won. And the organization was caught red-handed calibrating the performance reviews. Well, this is what dictates how everybody works. So if you remember my definition of an organization chart, it was simply, it's a picture that shows how an organization is supposed to work and a clear exposition of why it doesn't. In the entire process of a performance review, there is hardly ever any coaching to be seen. So the fix for that case was as follows. Using the STAR approach, and if you don't know what it is, I'll tell you. It is situation, task, action, result. We looked at the situation in depth. We created a task, the actions that were needed to be taken, and the result. And in a very, very quick overview, the situation was a negative culture and environment, bad management practices, little support, even less growth, and widespread fear of the performance evaluation monster. The task was to boost employee morale, recreate employee engagement, and ultimately improve personal and organizational performance. The action we took was really amounted to a structural and a structural change in the nature of the organization. In a complex, very furious 4 weeks, we literally interviewed everybody in the organization and identified 8 managers and directors. It later grew to 14, who we believed and the EVP believed had the capacity to be developed into coaches. But if we just did that and left it at that flat line of coaches, this would not have burrowed into the organization. So we identified 22 junior level, high potential employees who could be developed into project facilitators. So everything my colleague and I did to bring this change about first ran through not the vice president and not the directors, but through the facilitators, and they were the ones who actually made the day-to-day of this work. I got to tell you, that was a brilliant stroke, because driving the coaching function down the organization has enormous benefits, which I'll show you later when we discuss the benefits of coaching. And the result, it was a long haul, was that there was less focus on performance management and more focus on performance. And we saw the emergence of coaching. So if we haven't made the case for coaching, perhaps I should do it for you this way. A great model, probably the best that you can find for a coaching model that can be used within organizations, is the game of baseball. Now think about it, even more so than football, basketball, hockey, or any of the other team sports. Think about it, and I want you to know, just right from the very beginning, exactly where my heart lies. It is right there, ladies and gentlemen. And after years and years of anguish, I had a great year last year. But I do want to point to this. This is the Mets preseason team picture 2015. This is after spring training. The 40-man roster came up north, and they were ready to rock and roll. And if you'll notice, and I won't ask you to count because I already did for you, there are 40 players, 1 manager, there's Terry Collins right there, and 10 coaches. Those coaches are not responsible for the decisions made on who to bring in or on how to run the game. Those coaches, although Terry does ask them for their advice during the game, those coaches, and there are 10 of them to 1 manager, are the ones who do, these are the coaches, the pitching coach, the hitting coach, the base running coach, the defensive coach, first base coach, third base coach, the bench coach, the bullpen coach, and it goes on and on like that. So when it comes down to it, each coach has a few players that he is coaching and helping get better at his job. So I hope you can see by this point that coaching and managing are not equal. They're not the same thing, and they're not to be confused with one another. So now let's get back to what is coaching, and I'd like to give you a definition. It's the process of helping others gain and improve skills, ability, and knowledge in order to better perform a task or job, or to become more productive, integrated members of a team. If you will look at all the positive words in that definition, helping, improve, skills, ability, knowledge, better perform, etc., productive, integrated, this is a fabulous definition of coaching, and you can see that it is light years away from managing. So what does coaching do? Well, there's the word help again. It helps others to reach new heights, which is what the coach is really most responsible for doing, by developing the skills that person has and adding to them, by maximizing performance, and by realizing potential. Now, your manager has never done this, I'm going to assume, because he's busy or she's busy on a quarterly basis seeing if you reached your goals. But the coach is in there giving you the tools you need to do it. Coaching maintains the ongoing practice of positive support and positive feedback. The feedback becomes so incredibly critical, and if you want the simplest example of that, when your heating goes on in your house, its output is a warm house, but part of the output goes back into input. That's what the thermostat is, measuring it and telling the system how it's doing. If it's doing well, it shuts down. If it's not, it keeps going. So that positive support and positive feedback is what a coach does. And when done right, coaching is helping people to learn, but not teaching them what you want them to know. Big difference between coaching and managing. So a couple of things about coaching, a couple of therefores. Coaching is all about potential. As a result, there's an implied belief in the people you're coaching. This is inbred. Coaching is not necessarily long-term. It can spur immediate improvement, and that's exactly what coaches do when they're standing outside the batting cage and when they're watching pitchers in their motion. Therefore, coaching should be in your organization an immediate priority. It's an investment. Not all investments have immediate returns. Some do, but the fact is that it has a very high potential ROI. Coaching is all about optimism. And the reason for that is there's an equal stake for all parties. The coach becomes a better coach, the coachee becomes a better performer, and that keeps working on itself in an upward pattern. Coaching creates awareness because in doing so, it's an all-inclusive process. Both learn from this, the coach and the coachee, the teacher and the pupil, if you will. Coaching is a very, very good function for connecting the day-to-day to the big picture. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing all the tasks I'm doing? As a result of that, it sustains itself through mutual vision and mutual commitment. There is a great mutuality involved in the coaching relationship. And whereas coaching is ongoing, it can also be spontaneous because there are, as we know, moments. So coaching should be continuous, and that's different from continual. Continual happens once, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, but there are periods of not happening in between. Continuous is ongoing. It never ends. So I talked about coaching, counseling, or mentoring before, and this is all about coaching, but you should be asking the question, what's the difference? Well, here's the definition I gave you before of coaching. And in diametric opposite position is counseling, which is the process of addressing a specific negative behavior, patterns of behavior, or condition which is preventing the individual or the team from becoming and remaining successful. If you look at all the positive words in the definition of coaching, this is filled with negative words. Does that make it not necessary? No, it does not. But the difference between coaching and counseling is roughly the difference between day and night. Mentoring, a very cool thing, it's a multidimensional process. It's a relationship that's usually more informal, but there are things other than coaching involved. There's role modeling, brokering, and advocating. It's more holistic than coaching, and it can focus on your entire career rather than just your job. Mentoring is a very cool thing, but we're here to talk about coaching, and the coaching-counseling difference couldn't be more plain. The nature of coaching is that it is built on mutual trust and mutual learning and mutual growth. There's a commitment to empowerment, especially for the person being coached, and that's critical within an organization. That empowerment is what brings forth great new ideas. It's an enlightening function, and the part of coaching that I like the most is that it's a shared and distributed responsibility. Both the coach and the coachee have the responsibility to do better. It raises awareness, especially in light of connecting the day-to-day to the big picture. It's very humanistic and very encouraging. And if you think a pat on the back is simplistic, it is not. But coaches don't pat you on the back, or wherever coaches pat you, unless you've done something that shows that you've made the improvement that you have been coached to do. Coaching is continuous, and in coaching, no one's a spectator. Everyone is in. All hands on deck. Now, I don't want to go through this entire chart, which I developed for that client, but if you'll notice a few of the really interesting differences. The force of coaching is inspiration, where the force of counseling is more power. Coaching is an opportunity-based function. Counseling is deficit-based. Coaching focuses on improvement, counseling on dysfunction. The coaches that a question asks are, what do you think? How do you think you ought to do it? The questions that a counselor asks is, why did you do that? Coaching works on specific behaviors, counseling on general conditions. You're co-creators in a coaching relationship rather than a doctor-patient relationship. And there's just such an enormous difference in the way those of us who are coaches have to be trained to be coaches, and those of us counselors have to be trained to be counselors. The conundrum that coaches and managers have, and they both have the same thing, is this. If I get into coaching at the beginning, it'll get done more quickly and more efficiently if I do it myself, so I'll do it myself. Now, you may say, yeah, that's right. And as a manager, you're right. As a coach, you're wrong. Why? Because you have to understand that change almost always occurs on a longer-term basis. Look at this picture, which is it's by a contemporary Canadian artist named Rob Gonzalez. I love his work. But if you notice, getting from here on the left to here on the right took some time. The change that you see step by step is evolutionary. It's gradual, incremental, hardly imperceptible, or largely imperceptible, hardly perceptible. It's holistic and it's organic. And if you understand that and you support the function that gets you from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, you'll understand that, yeah, there's an investment in time and an investment in money, but that's the way most change takes place. Does all change take place that way? No, but most change does. And if you understand the nature of change, you are automatically qualifying yourself as a potential coach. But the change has to happen, and as Alvin Toffler said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Toffler said that in 1975. I'm sorry, 1970. And if those of you who recognize him, you know he wrote that landmark book, Future Shock, in which he told us what the 21st century was going to be like, and he did it 30 years before the 20th century, 21st century showed up, and he was right. Alvin Toffler, I'm happy to tell you, is 98 years old and living with his wife in a very productive way. He's still counseling. I'm not counseling, but he's still advising corporations. How about that? I told you I want to tell you about the 8 benefits or benefits. I do want to talk about 8 benefits of coaching. And I can tell you this from many different standpoints. Having been parts of organizations in which we brought this in, of advising organizations that have brought it in, and organizations that have not, excuse me, and now being an independent coach on my own. In the long run, and you don't have to go too long to get there, coaching saves time. Because when you're coaching your people and they're getting better at what they do, they get better at making the organization more efficient and effective. Coaching develops your people. There's no question about that. I just went through 30 minutes telling you about that. And here's one. It grooms your successor. One of the biggest issues that executives have is they look down the line and they don't see bench strength. They don't see people who could come in and take over for you. And why do they need to take over for you? Because you, of course, want to move up the ladder. So if you can't groom your successor, you're probably stuck where you are. But if you do move up, your successor is ready. Coaching, no question, inspires your people. Not only the people directly being coached, but the people around who begin to get the idea, maybe it's a good idea if I get coached also. It builds your team. Let me talk about the Mets one more time. I don't need to. It transforms your organization from one that changes interventionally, one that changes irregularly, into one that changes holistically, into an organization that comes into work every Monday morning saying, what's the business we're in? What do we need to do that we didn't know how to do last week? And a company that is filled with people who are ready to learn new things and who are not resisting the change when it happens. It improves performance. Think about the client that I talked about, rather than keeping the focus on the performance management. And finally, it benefits you in every way. You become a better manager, director, vice president, senior vice president, and COO. You make more money. Your organization does better, and the whole thing. So everybody wins on this. You, the person you're coaching, the organization, everybody wins. There are more benefits, but you know what? The screen's only so big. Every organization has one or more of these barriers to coaching, and they are. And I'm going to go through this very quickly. There are excuses made like I don't have the time. There is the concept of perfectionism, and that doesn't mean doing something perfectly. It means perfectly the way I see it. And the micromanager is usually the one who does that. There's the command and control mentality, the person who can't let go, There's the my way or the highway bully. There's the manager who, or even above, who does not have confidence in the person. That's a terrible thing, by the way, that undermines everything. There's the fear of being invisible, and there's the self-centered person who can't get past his own ego. This is one of the things that we had to do in vetting those 8, then 14 managers who became coaches in that organization. The egoists were not in that group. Somehow or another, I can't get the, there we go. In order to transition from manager to coach, decide early that coaching is more productive. Understand that coaching is more time-consuming, is more time-consuming at first. Change your thinking and take the long view. Look where it's leading you. Allot time to coaching. Put it in your schedule. And when you do, you wind up having more time for the things you didn't think you had more time for. Know when to coach and when to manage. Of course, you can't be hired 100% of your time as a coach, but you do need to know when to coach and when to manage. But coach more and manage less. Commit to being a better coach each day. And on top of all that, coach, who's your coach? Coach. Because even the great coaches have their own coaches. So moving forward, I would suggest that it's not the success you achieve for yourself that matters in the end, whether it's in your company, your nonprofit, your community, or even your family. It's the success you help others reach that defines your worth. Got it? Engage your workforce, all of it, with continuous learning, and that means ongoing coaching. Improve everyone's performance by more and better coaching, not more and better, managing. Make everyone a coach. That was the goal in the organization and others I've worked with. And remember, you manage tasks, you manage products, you manage capital, you manage assets, you manage investments, you manage processes. You coach your people. I thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, I'd be delighted to take them.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you so much. If you have any more questions, we still have about 2 minutes, 5 minutes to take in some questions. If you don't have any questions, Eli, do you want to give out your contact information?
Oh, gee, I hadn't thought of that. I can't hide from you. There's a million ways you can get to me, and if you do want to, I would appreciate hearing from you.
So you have all Eli Amdur's information, phone number, email. Connect to him through LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and his website. Yeah. So if you don't have any more questions, or if you have questions, okay. Myra, how do you feel about internal coaches versus external coaches?
Let me have that one again.
How do you feel about internal coaches versus external coaches?
Okay. Well, how do I feel about it? Real good, as a matter of fact. That's the job that my colleague and I had. We were external coaches. What we did was, in the process, build that function into the organization. But good organizations go externally and hire executive coaches, which is another one of 18 million functions that I do. They bring in coaches for their CEOs, their COOs, their vice presidents, their up-and-comers. I feel very strongly about that. It is an organization that is saying, yeah, we know we need to get better, and we are willing to do what it takes to get better. So very, very big thumbs up on external coaches as well.
What about coaching clients?
What about coaching clients? I'm not getting the question. How do you coach clients? Do I? Yes, I certainly do. How is it done? If you're asking about the process, is that what we're going after here?
Kate, can you elaborate on your question? Let me take another question first. How do you encourage a coaching relationship with your boss?
Oh, terrific. That's a terrific question. As a matter of fact, I think you just became my new favorite person. first of all, you've got to be the kind of person that is looked at as someone who gets stuff done. But then when you go to your boss and say, listen, here are the things that I think I need help with. And of course, you're one that's already proven your skills. But to say, look, I need help with this, and I want to learn that, and I want to get involved in a cross-functional committee. I want to get better at doing a job here, and I want to be more a part of the organization, etc. These are very broad terms. But if you can provide for your boss proof that you are willing to learn and grow, and you are working in an organization in which bosses recognize that, my suggestion is you do it as directly as that. You've got to have proven your worth. But if you have done that, then the commitment to bring you a coach, either internal or external, will likely be there.
Okay, about the first question, what about coaching clients? So she works for a nonprofit organization, and she's wondering if we can coach the people that they help.
If we, meaning they,
the organization, yes.
Can coach the people they help.
Correct.
Yes. I think what would be important would be to identify some people within your organization that were roughly similar to those 8, later to be 14 people that we recognized, and expose them to a coaching program like they were exposed to with us, so they understand the principles of coaching, the foundations, the pillars of coaching, the philosophy of coaching. You can't just go out and say, here I am, I'm your coach. There's a lot behind it, but that's what we did not only with the managers and the directors in that organization, but with the 22 up-and-comers. So you got to get coached first. It's not a terribly in-depth problem, unless, of course, the organization was as mired as that one was. But you really got to know what you're doing, and once you do, you go out and practice it. So coaching the people you help, yes. Could you use a little introduction to Coaching 101? Yes.
I think that's about it. Have all the questions we have for now.
And again, feel free to reach out to Eli. He's always available for you. Phone, email, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere. You can contact him. All right? That's all. Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye.
Well, awesome. Somebody said very